What's going on, everybody? Welcome to IndieQuest, the celebration of the indie and obscure. I'm one of your hosts, Frantic, also known as Josh. I was changing it up again. Why not? And I'm joined by one of my co-hosts here, Blink, also known as Steve. How are you?
We're doing all right. It's been a long, hard weekend, but all that means is that I get to wind down in the last few hours of it with my boys, which is exactly how I want to spend my Sunday evening. So we're doing well. But how well I'm doing is always dictated by how well Seth is doing. How's it going, buddy?
It's going good over here in Ohio. I, this weekend, decided, well, it's been several weeks of this. I always do lots of research when I decide I'm going to pick up a new hobby. And we'll see how long this hobby lasts before it fizzles out and dies. But I decided to buy an RC plane this weekend. You guys ever flown an RC plane before?
No.
I have not. No, I've done the hobbyist RC cars before. My brother-in-law does those, so I've raced those at like a track and stuff, but I've never done the planes.
So I have barely done it. The boys came in today after playing outside, which it wasn't very warm today, but we're now used to that warm weather from like a couple or a week ago or so. So now it's like they just want to be outside all the time, even if it's only 35. But they went out, they were hanging out outside, and they both come in at, 2 o'clock or something. They're like, it's not that windy. Can we take the plane out? And I was like, it's really not that windy? Because it was supposed to be pretty windy. And they're like, oh, no, it's fine. So we walk out with the plane, and I walk into the backyard. I think I've maybe explained this before, but I have like almost 2 backyards. I have a backyard that goes to this tree line, and then beyond the tree line, all the way to this apple tree, which is a good like half acre back there. So I walk back there, and I wouldn't say it's blustery, but it is blowing for sure. I'm like, this is probably too windy, guys. And they're like, well, it doesn't feel that windy. I'm like, for this little RC plane, it's going to feel real windy. So it's like, well, whatever. I had planned on doing even more research on this specific plane before I decided to launch it, but I just went for it. Turn throttle all the way up, toss it in the air, see what happened. It took off like a bat out of hell. Went higher and higher. I'm like, oh, my God. I now know that I don't know enough about what I'm doing. Let's try to get it back down. Let's throttle down. And eventually it goes 3 houses over and crashes into somebody's garden behind their house.
Nice.
That didn't go very well. In my defense, the wind took it, no doubt. I mean, I got a fairly small one, and it was not overly expensive. They can get very, very expensive. And it really is only suited for very low wind. So I kind of knew this would happen, but of course, we tried 2 more times. The second time, we crashed into a tree. Not too bad, though. We got it down. Third time, it was only up for about 10 seconds before I was like, all right, we're going to try to land this thing. And kind of softly landed it on the grass. So, I got better as it went.
He's improving.
Picked up the plane and walked back in the house. The boys were content, and that was it. So, hopefully we're hoping for calmer days out here to try to fly it for real. So,
Is the ultimate plan to buy multiples so that you and your boys can be like warbirds fighting each other in the air?
Yeah. It's funny you say warbirds because there's like a subset of RC planes called warbirds. They're mostly P-51 P-51 Mustangs. Yeah, I think so. That was like the last planes that we had in World War II, and then into Korea we flew them as well. But probably the cool thing is if you really start to get into it, you can get a controller that you can like hook 10 different planes up to. So you only really need one controller. You can't fly them all at once. You don't fly them all at once. But they have like different channels, right? So, channel 4 today, I'm flying this plane, right? So that's like the super hobbyists do. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see how it goes. If I decide that it's something that I really enjoy, then moving forward, maybe that's what we do. This is all stemmed because I played Air Combat, which is the first Ace Combat on PlayStation 1.
Nice.
I played that the other day. I mean, it was like a couple weeks ago. And I was like, oh, man, now I'm just super into planes. And then I went down that route. It's like, I'm never going to fly one, so I can do this way, right?
Get that hyperfixation in right there, right? You got it started, and then you just got to focus in. Laser pointed, right?
This is one of those times where I was like, okay, maybe my family is onto something about my fixation issues because I'm seeing it this time. I'm like, okay, I get it now. I go down this rabbit hole. It's all I focus on for like a week straight, and then I go buy one. So, yeah.
Compare your YouTube algorithm now versus 3 days ago before you started this. Unrecognizable, right?
It's dude. It is so glaring. I'm like, okay, but what if I don't want to watch stuff about RC planes? Like, keep scrolling.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
YouTube forgot you liked indie games at this point.
Exactly.
Like, we're serving this man aircraft content, Maybe some nostalgic air hogs throwbacks, and then some modern day RC cars, or RC planes, and that's it.
Yep. That's
you scroll down far enough, and it's just eventually it's like RC airplane simulator 2017 or whatever, and it's just like start having that crossover, and then you get your indie games at the bottom.
Yes, exactly. It's funny that they're actually, so obviously there's like there's what do they call flight simulator, right, where you can actually fly a plane, but there legit is an RC plane simulator, Josh, that you can like pay for to learn how to fly better. And I will say, in my limited experience today, it's not all that easy. The issue is when the plane's coming back, the controls don't change, so you have to like orient yourself. We're all three of us. We're all used to playing 3D platformers, right? Where if I'm running around as Spyro or Banjo and the camera gets wonky, I can just press a button usually and flip it back behind me, right?
Yep.
With a plane, you can't do that. The plane's coming at you. You got to figure out how that works. So it's tough.
Here's what you do: you mount a GoPro to the plane, and then you cast that to some little handheld monitor that you have with you, and then you actually fly it looking at the monitor. You don't even need to look up at the plane.
Yes, it's like now I'm just playing a video game. Why? Why don't I just go back in my house?
Yeah. So it turns out if you're into that, they actually have this series called Ace Combat, where you can do that with much bigger planes.
And now we've gone full circle.
That's awesome. Well, enjoy the new hobby, buddy.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. The only thing I've done all weekend is we went out and did a couple of, adulting things, but besides that, we've been playing Path of Exile 2, and we were not having a good time with that game. It's like we got to the first Act 1 boss, and we spent 5 hours on that same boss. Oh, we were like, okay, well, let's go grind a little bit. Maybe we're not leveled up enough, so we did that a bit, and then we started the night to getting destroyed by the boss, and we ended the night getting destroyed by the boss. So I don't know if we're just bad or what, but we did. So this morning, I was like, all right, we have a Minecraft realm we're doing with the polykill people. So I started playing some Minecraft, and I hear in the other room, Sarah's like, I did it. Now I go out there, and they had beat the boss by themselves. So I was like, oh, awesome. Dang, nice, So
nice.
So what I ended up doing is pausing on Minecraft, went over there, and we ended up beating it together so that, our story would progress together. But basically all it took was just learning patterns and recognizing the boss patterns. And it's very Dark Souls like in that respect, where it's like okay, here's the 4 different waves this boss is going to go through, and you got to just remember, or you're going to get one-shotted out of nowhere if you're not paying attention. Type of thing.
That makes sense. I respect it. Path of Exile is in my head, there's like a classification of a game that I think of as designed for people smarter than me, and Path of Exile is in it. It's up there with like Kerbal Space Program and like maybe 1 or 2 others. I'm like, I think that I'm supposed to have a master's degree. Old Bachelor Joe over here is not fit for Path of Exile.
Yeah, it's one of those where you have the skill tree, and then you're zooming out of that skill tree what feels like 10 minutes, because there's just so many branching paths. It's like the biggest and largest skill tree you've ever seen in your life, and you're like, I know this is just for my passives, but you can pretty much play this game infinitely. I think that's the point, right? So in a game like that,
yes,
I like a good skill tree, but man, a skill tree can become daunting in a hurry, and then once that happens, I'm like, I'm kind of out on this. That happens all too often, where I'm like, give me a good meaty, I can go in different directions, but then when it's skill tree the game, I'm like, that's a little bit too much for me. So
that's this one for sure. It's like the skill tree is legitimately probably bigger than like the Final Fantasy X sphere grid.
It is.
It's just
it's
enormous.
ginormous. And then well, we're trying to have like co-op games. We can just like, oh, what do you want to do? Want to play a game together? Cool. We can just jump on it. So we had Split Fiction, but we ran through that pretty quick. It's not that long of a game. Great game. But and then we're like, okay, what's next? We started Path of Exile. Let's see if we can get a little further. And we made maybe like if we were like really good at the game, we probably made like 30 minutes of progress, right? You know, in reality, yeah. It's that type of situation.
Right.
Very nice. That's fun. My kid was sick all weekend, so I was just dealing with a poor toddler with a 102 fever.
Not fun.
Not fun.
Nope. Not a good time for anybody in the house, I'll say that. He's either sleeping and you feel bad for him, or that Tylenol kicks in and he feels just well enough to realize that he feels like crap, and then he's not so happy about it. So it's like I said, it's good to be with my boys.
Just make sure you guys are rotating. Rotate that Motrin,
Tylenol and that ibuprofen.
That's the key. Yep.
Got to hit them on that cycle. We got them all lined up with the naps and everything. I mean, we got the moves. Moves.
Well, we're here to talk about a very specific indie game, and hopefully people don't just click off instantly right when we start talking about this one, because we're kind of deep in the series here of the To the Moon franchise. This one's kind of a spin-off, not spin-off, but more like a side story. It even says it in the title. It's just a To the Moon series beach episode. So we all three played this very recently. It's not a very long game. It's like, 2 to 3 hours at the most, if that. Yeah, it depends on how long you want to do the side activities that are in there. But who wants to break it down? Who wants to talk about the game? Read the Steam description, tell a little bit about this interesting title we played.
I can read the Steam description if I can get to it in time. All right. So this is your overview for anyone that's never seen this game before. It is, like Josh mentioned, it is canon. You know, despite the name A Beach Episode, this is very much relevant to the story of the larger To the Moon series, which I guess, a question I've never asked either of you fellas, is there a name for this series? Is it the To the Moon series?
I would think so, right?
At one point, we coined something along the lines of to the Mooniverse.
Yeah, it was To the Mooniverse is one of the things we said. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. This is in the To the Mooniverse then. And it says, is this in the same canon as To the Moon Finding Paradise and Imposter Factory? Yes, it is technically. Just a To the Moon series beach episode is just that, a To the Moon series beach episode. Get ready for a short adventure as the SigCorp crew takes off to an all-expenses-paid vacation at the Golden Lobster Hotel and Resort for a grand total of 1 day, which is apparently the most the company was willing to fork out. Join familiar faces from To the Moon, Finding Paradise, and Imposter Factory in this narrative-filled adventure with mini-games of varying elements, mysteries, and relaxation, as well as ... Wait, most of the characters here should be dead ... So, I want to just lay this out right away for you guys. Normally, the way we do this is we break down kind of the high-level points, and then we hit a spoiler wall. I think if folks are familiar with the To the Moon series, there's not a lot in that first section, really.
Yeah.
Do you have anything you want to cover there, or do we want to just kind of say this is a mostly spoilerish episode for folks that have played?
Yeah, I would say that if you're going to listen to close to the majority of this episode, it's going to almost all be spoiler. I will run through quickly on, kind of the high-level bullet points of what this game is for anyone who has not played one before, or specifically has not played this game. I will say right now, if you've played along with us in the past when we've done the other To the Moon games, or if you're a new listener, if you've played all the other ones but you haven't played this game, I would highly recommend playing this game prior to listening to the majority of this episode, right? So appreciate you getting here, listening to us chat, but don't listen much further if you don't want some pretty major spoilers once we get into the meat of it. But prior to that, gameplay, this is a To the Moon game. You are walking around mostly with either Ava or mostly Ava. Sometimes you have Neil in your party, and Roxy and Rob are both there too, who kind of, you can sort of walk around with them at certain times, but mostly you're playing as Ava. You're walking around this resort, as is the case with the majority of these games. You can click, you can use WASD, you can probably use a controller, although I didn't try it.
You can.
But for the most part,
yeah,
cool. So, but for the most part, all you're doing is walking around with keyboard, mouse, or controller, and that's it, right? It's an RPG Maker game, as all the rest of them are. But I will say, and I kind of said this in my notes, this game just does something with that RPG Maker style. Mm-hmm. It's the cream of the crop when it comes to that. It is so good. We've mentioned it before. Character expressions are awesome. It feels like Kangao gets better and better, Freebird in general, right? Gets better and better at this as these games go on. This is just like a 2-hour side story thing, but it looks so crisp, so good, that if this was just a game on its own that I hadn't heard of before, I would be like, oh, this is a great looking game. I love the way this game looks. I love everything about it. I love the way it feels when I play it. Like, I know what it is, but so good. So, hats off there. Very good looking game. So I guess that kind of covers art, right?
I had just a random tangent. You said that just a game that I saw that just came out recently that has a really awesome RPG Maker style is called Look Outside. It just released. They just announced it, and it's Devolver Digital. They're like, all right, here you go, Shadow Drop. It's an awesome looking horror RPG Maker game. I just wanted to throw that out there if you guys didn't hear it or see it.
I have already wishlisted it. Yeah, I saw that over the weekend. I was looking for some things for our next episode, which we might cover towards the end. But I was looking for stuff. I'm like, man, this game looks sick. So yeah, I wishlisted that. So it is horror. So maybe one of us brings it to an October episode, perhaps, or before. We'll see.
Could be. I will say one thing before we move off of the style is these games have all done this, but something that really impresses me about them is when you think of RPG Maker games, you think of like templatized graphics and environments and stuff. Like there's a little bit of this being a very accessible, beginner-friendly engine. There's a little bit of like shortcutting to make a longer RPG by reusing assets a lot. And I actually was struck by it in Beach episode in particular that Freebird game doesn't really do that. They do reuse assets, but there's such like a volume of assets and attention put into every environment that you don't really ever feel that sort of like tiled map energy. You don't feel that like, oh, they were just repurposing this like bookshelf or tile or something over here. It all feels very distinct and very like dense. There's a lot of variety. Like you're on the beach for part of it, of course, and there's tons of different people and umbrellas and towels and fruit and stands and just it's all so different and unique. So really, really well done.
To that point, I think that this is something that's working for them. Like the typical RPG Maker game, right? It's RPG Maker, so it's usually an RPG. The nice thing about Freebird games is the majority of the story takes place in only a couple locations, right? So they don't have to do that copy-paste thing across their entire map of RPG, right? And so for me, that's probably a big plus for them. But then obviously, things like in this game specifically that I don't think other games ever did is there's a section where you can kind of choose what to do during a certain part of the day, right? You can go and do different activities with the group. And there's like a blown out version of almost like an overworld map that I cannot remember Freebird ever using before. And I thought it was super cool. Like I really enjoyed that, right? To be able to just go and like select a stage almost, right? So very cool in that way. And what they're constantly evolving upon from previous entries, right? They're constantly evolving even for a side story like this. So very cool there. Story, we'll briefly touch on it, although much of it will probably have to be saved for a spoiler. Like Josh mentioned, they go on a beach vacation. They get 1 day to go do this that the company pays for. it's kind of as you're playing through the game, at least the main chunk of the game, you kind of notice that there are things happening. And if you have played To the Moon before or any of those games, instantly you'll be like, oh, I recall what this is, where unnatural things happen that doesn't make sense in the context of like real life if that's what they're trying to go for. So, yeah, if you've played those games, you know what I'm talking about, right? But for the most part, go ahead, Steve.
I was going to say, I didn't read the description of this game before I played it. I actually didn't follow this one very closely at all, other than like, this sort of was just in my, I know they're making it, I know I'll play them all, I don't need to look at any details. So I didn't read the Steam page or anything like that. And I guess I won't consider this a spoiler since it was right up front in their description, but I didn't even know that characters from the other games were going to return here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, right at the top of the game, basically, within the first like 15 minutes, you walk into the hotel and sitting there are Johnny and River from To the Moon, and they're on the piano playing the theme, and
for River,
River, and I was like, what's
going on here?
what the hell? I was like, is this an Easter egg? Like, I was still kind of feeling out, how seriously I should be taking the beach episode and like what it meant to the timeline. And so I was very like, I put it in my notes all like, whoa, what's going on? And then obviously we'll get into more details about, what exactly the intent of all that is. But it was a fun surprise for me. It was nice to see them. Plus, always great to hear that song again.
Oh, God, so good. So I guess that's where I'll ask you both a question. Do you know what the meaning or like what a beach episode is?
It's
it's
an anime thing.
As a trope?
Yeah, as a trope.
Yeah.
Like in the anime? Okay, you guys. So for anybody out there that doesn't, right? So if anybody out there doesn't watch anime, typically it's only called beach episode because so many anime go to the beach specifically, but it's not necessarily, it doesn't have to be that. Another example of this I can think of, so I'll explain beach episode first. A beach episode in an anime is an episode that is like a little bit of a breath of fresh air in terms of not so serious anymore. We're the characters that we know and love because we've come to know them throughout this series are now just going and having fun.
Yep.
Right? That's what the typical beach episode is. Another example of this, it isn't necessarily on the beach. If anybody out there has ever watched Dragon Ball Z, there's an episode where Goku and Piccolo learn how to drive.
I knew that's the one you were going to bring up. I just knew it.
Yes.
Funny story about that one. That's the first episode of Dragon Ball Z I ever saw in my life. It was like all my friends were talking about it. I went home after school. I turned it on, and I was like, all right, let's see what this Dragon Ball Z thing is about. And that was the first episode. And immediately I was like, I'm out. This is not the show for me. I don't know what they're all seeing in this, but I'll take a pass.
So, Dragon Ball Z is, in general, not always super serious, but much more serious than its prequel Dragon Ball, right? Where, lots of fighting, lots of super anime violence and trying to kill a god, basically, right? Like, that's what Dragon Ball Z is. But then, randomly, two of the main characters, Goku and Piccolo, decide that they're going to learn how to drive a car. And it's very funny. It's very much return to the roots of Dragon Ball. And that is kind of the point of these types of episodes in anime, and then also the point of, or what they're trying to convey as the point of this specific game is, this is all of our other games were super serious, and this one's more fun and light, and you can just smile and have a good time with the characters that you know and love. So to Steve's point about seeing Johnny and River sitting there, you're like, okay, that's not right. I've played To the Moon, and you shouldn't be there for reasons, right? I don't think that's spoiling a lot, but you shouldn't really be there. But I like it, and that's what beach episodes are for too. It's like these are the characters that I love and I've grown to know, and I want to watch them have fun, and I want fan service, right?
Yeah.
This is 100% without any, like, it is 100% fan service game. That's what it's doing. You're going to get to see all the characters that you love from all these other games that you've played, and you're going to get to watch them all interact with each other in different ways, which is really cool. So that's kind of what the point of this game is. But as the Steam description reads, right? There are other things going on here. So even if you're like, oh, I played those games and I really enjoy them, but I don't really need to see that stuff. It's still, if you are into this series, still a must play, in my opinion, for wrapping up some loose ends on things, which we'll of course get to eventually. I think the last thing I would cover, we kind of already talked about with Four Rivers, music. There's lots of returning songs from the previous games, but there's also like some new stuff. I feel like the song that I heard that I love the most, that I feel like I never heard before, was when you go to the extreme sports beach thing.
Yeah.
That song was bopping, man. I love that song. So, music it's to the moon. It's amazing. Always amazing. That's like something that's going to hold firm with this series no matter what, I think, is the music will always be good. So I don't know if you guys have anything to add.
I was like you in that I was like mostly tuned in to the returning music, although I will say at this point I definitely know To the Moon soundtrack and Forever. Like I listen to that soundtrack in particular a lot. Finding Paradise and Imposter Factory, phenomenal soundtracks, but I've listened to them a little bit less. And so there were times in this game where I wasn't sure in some parts. I was like, is this like a callback to a previous game's music? Is this like a remix of a song or a cover of a song from a previous game, or is this a new composition? And I wasn't sure. Sometimes it's like, this is just To the Moon piano style music. Like there's just there's a certain like texture that they have to all of their music. You know what you get when you listen to it. And so sometimes I was like, I don't even know if this is new or old, but damn if it's not good.
There was one specific instance where I was like, oh, I know that this song is from a previous game because there's a character from a previous game sitting there. And I think this is totally optional. Someone is playing the piano that's not Johnny. And a character is sitting on the bench that says, do you want to listen to something that I would enjoy? And you're like, yes. And then another theme from a previous game starts playing, right? Dancing around like that. So, again, very fan service. Very, all my favorite characters are talking to each other, and they're telling me more things about them. So that's kind of cool in that way.
The question I would have for this, and then we can kind of maybe put it on the quest log and then get to the spoilers. I feel like that's kind of the natural conclusion here. My question would be is, did it do a good job doing that for you guys? Did it do the fan servicey thing while telling a new story good enough for you guys? Because I'll answer it first. I think it did, but I do have some things that it was okay in some spots. Like I feel like this is maybe like a lesser entry by design. Right, so there's things that it's going to miss out on by not being one of the fuller entries. But what do you guys think about that?
I think it did a pretty good job. I would say it did a better job at making me smile about characters that I haven't seen in a while than it did weaving them into an overarching like good narrative. Because it's not, it's a side story. It's really like you're kind of just going on a fun little vacation with some of your favorite characters, and that's kind of what you're getting, right? And you should know that going in. It's not going to blow you away. At least the majority of it won't blow you away. But I think that's kind of the point. That's what Freebird was going for when they made this game. Is just make a fun little return to the series where you're going to get to see a lot of characters that you really shouldn't be able to see. And that's kind of cool. So I enjoyed it for what it was, for sure.
Yeah, I think maybe the pacing of this one is a little more. Let me go back to that, or pause that for a second. If you're someone who is coming to Beach Episode, like fully invested in that loop of a To the Moon game, I think that you're gonna hurt a little bit, because it doesn't have like the structure of like following some other character that you're getting to know and learning their life and their memories. Like you're exclusively dealing with the characters you already know. And it is a relatively backloaded story. Like if you aren't into that like vacation-y goofiness, the first like 2 hours of a 2.5 hour game for you is probably going to be a little slow. But I mean, if you're invested enough at this point to have played all the other games, including this one, and you have a podcast about indie games where you dedicate an episode to each one and cover them, like, you're going to get a lot out of it. So it's an interesting one. Josh, you said putting on the quest log on it. Are you ready to do that?
What we can. I mean, to me, it seems pretty easy to say that's probably a good solid side quest, at least to me. Like for this one, a side story being a side quest makes sense.
That's what I would say.
Right. Yeah.
Yes. This is a To the Moon series side quest. That's literally what it is. So it makes a lot of sense. The only thing I'll add is you're going to get out of this game kind of what you put into it too. So if you're the type of person who plays an RPG and tends to get into a new town and go and talk to every NPC, that you're going to enjoy this more so than the person who's like, okay, just get me to the main whatever I need to go do next. I don't care about this dude's cow. Like, it's not going to impact me in any way. You almost have to, if you really want to get everything out of this game, you almost have to talk to almost everyone as many times as you possibly can. That's kind of the point, right?
Yeah,
So.
and there are multiple times where this story kind of like gives you a little opportunity to walk around and like, it's usually like on your way to someplace, but they're like, I could go here or I could, go explore for a little bit, and you'll want to go explore, right? That's where you're going to mine the best parts of this game, I think, other than some of the core narrative conceits. So if you're the type of person that opens up a review and you scroll to the bottom to see the number score, take a pass on this one, buddy. This one ain't for you.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it does say in the Steam description there are mini games, and the length of the game will be determined by how deep you want to dive into those, which I feel like you guys are doing some score chasing on the arcade game that's in there. I mean, I thought is there like 2 or 3 little mini games in there? They both were pretty fun. I thought they were pretty well executed, so that does add to the fun.
Yeah, my favorite and the one that I would actually be like, this could be a fun little multiplayer game if they made it into one, is that like board game where you're on like the surfboards and you have to like attack each other, and it's almost like Super Smash Brothers or something, but for To the Moon characters. So I thought it was pretty cool. I did terribly, and I kind of was annoyed that maybe I was allowed to retry, but I didn't. Right, I needed to keep going. But I was like, man, I should have just picked Neil. Neil had the most health, and I feel like he was the best character in that one. But I mean, it's fun to kind of try different.
If you think about it, I'm gonna kind of go away from the spoilers, but Neil is probably the most strong character in that minigame for reasons because of the storyline, if you think about it. Right. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, for sure. If
you play that minigame, you want the people with the most health, all right? You think you're going to want more attack, but it's just it's a math. It's a numbers game. Also, just hug the side of the boat until the whatever it is spawns. I forget what it is.
Carrot thing?
Yeah, a little bit like a fruit or something. Yeah.
Yes.
That's what I did. I cheesed that thing hard and I got my W. Let's go.
Nice.
All right. Well, I think that basically do it for like the non-spoilery stuff. We can go around the horn and plug ourselves real quick if you want. You can find the show IndieQuestPod at gmail.com. Send us emails. We do have some emails. Do we want to read those today or skip them, since this was kind of like this is a review specific one, so we can save those for next time.
We'll hold them for the next episode, unless any of them are I don't think any of them are To the Moon specific, right?
No, none of them were. They were just like general topic ones. Okay, cool.
We'll get your emails next episode.
I will announce right here that next episode is a Bargain Quest episode. So we are going to do $5 or less this time. So be on the lookout for that. If you guys have any cheap games you want to suggest, send an email in, IndieQuestPod@gmail.com, or send us a message or comment, IndieQuestPod on Blue Sky. Steve, where can they find you on the internet?
Twitch and Twitter as Blinkoom, Blink OOM, M like moon, Kamatutha. Seth?
You can find me at Captain Drachma on Blue Sky, and of course in the Polymedia Discord. Best place on the internet. If you want to get into that Discord, head on over to Patreon, search up Polymedia, jump into that first tier, come and chat with us. Josh, where can they find you?
You can find me Josh Leslie on Blue Sky, And you can find a bunch of other awesome shows and content over on polymedianetwork.com. Go take a look if you haven't dove into the other shows on our network. So right after this little musical break, we're going to jump into some very, very deep spoilers for the game. Like, we will be saying things that you might not want to hear. You do not want to hear if you're into the series. So thanks for listening. If you haven't listened to this, played the games, we all recommend these. Obviously, we wouldn't do this focused episodes if we didn't recommend them. So go check them out. Come back and listen to the spoilers when you do. So yeah, it's time for spoilers. Spoilers. All right, give it a second. Can you guys believe? Can you believe that Neil's dead?
I know. That's so funny you said that, because I was like, so Neil's dead, huh? That's what I was thinking about.
Yep.
I do wonder. So first of all, no, or I didn't think that they would tell us that in this kind of game, right? Like, that's wild to me that they revealed that to us in a side story that, maybe some people will just skip. Although I don't know, probably To the Moon people won't, right? But
yeah,
it really makes you question a lot about the other games too. Like, once you realize that, you guys remember way back in To the Moon, we had talked about it, and this is something that just like stuck with me for all of the series, because it's like, what happened there? What was that? You kind of learn about it in the third game, Imposter Factory, but do you remember when Neil drops those pills? And there's like a red like shockwave that goes through the screen. You're like, what the heck was that? And it's like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And then you kind of learn why, because of Linry, of course, right?
Yep.
Neil's mom. But I don't know that we ever truly knew that there was something devastatingly wrong with Neil. I don't know. Maybe Imposter Factory told us that, but I just don't recall.
Yeah, I don't know if we were supposed to infer. So, correct me if I'm misremembering things. So, obviously, Neil's mom, Linry, had like I forget if they name it specifically, but some sort of condition that basically meant she was kind of forced to choose, like, do I give birth to my son at risk of my own health, or do I, get like a procedure done that risks my child but guarantees my life? And she obviously, Neil's here in the game, so obviously she chose to protect Neil. And I guess this is sort of like implying that genetic condition was passed down to Neil. And maybe the game's told us that explicitly, but it's like, okay, so he's kind of facing a similar battle, I guess, that his mother faced. Now, one thing I didn't notice in the beach episode is they don't, as far as I know, lay out any timeline. So we don't know if this is, 2 weeks following the events of Imposter Factory, if this is a few years. Like, there's nothing, based on the nature of what the beach episode is, there's nothing that really can clue us into where this should fall on any sort of timetable.
I have a crazy theory about that. A crazy theory that you guys are probably going to be like, oh, that's kind of far-fetched. Go ahead, Josh. What are you going to say?
Are you going to say that every game is her going through his memories? Like
other
what you're thinking? Like that,
yes.
that every
other
game
than
is
Imposter Factory, because that wouldn't make sense, right? Because they don't jump into. I mean, Neil's there, I guess, so maybe that's. But yes, the first two games, my thought was that's Ava, reliving
Maybe, yeah.
those memories with Neil. And,
Okay, so
yeah,
Maybe.
to frame this for people, because we haven't actually said this about the beach episode, we learn in the beach episode is essentially a simulation or a memory set up by Neil after he's passed away, that Ava can then like live kind of like a day with him, like somewhere that she can go and like still interact with him. And for whatever reason, he set this up for her. So what you're saying is that what he set up was actually all of his memories, and she is going through all of. So when we're in To the Moon, we're not actually those two characters in To the Moon, meaning Johnny and River. We're in the simulation.
Yeah, like
of
Inception.
the memory that Neil has of when they did that in the past.
Yeah, I think it's like Inception. I do not think that the contraption that Neil made for Ava, which I will touch on in, I believe, Finding Paradise, we find out, Roxy finds out that Neil stole something, right? That he took one of those machines, and she's like, he's not supposed to have that. And Roxy's like, she's in this game too. She's like super, ditzy and kind of quirky and crazy and whatever, and just does whatever she wants to do. But we find out, I think, in Finding Paradise, that there's certainly more. There's much more depth to her. Like, that's kind of a front she puts on. But she is very ditzy in this game as well, and just kind of like very impulsive, right? But we find out in Finding Paradise that Neil steals that machine. We also find out that Neil decides that Faye in Finding Paradise, and if people are here and like have not played these games, they're like, what is going on?
I know.
And for me, that if I was listening to this, I'd probably be like, I'm not going to remember any of this by tomorrow. So it is what it is. All these names, and if you're not looking at pictures, it's not as easy to remember, at least for me. But so Faye is also in this game, and that when you see Faye too, it's like, okay, this is obviously not real. Like this is a simulation of some kind. Yep. But yeah, Neil pulls Faye out because Faye is like evil, imaginary friend of Colin, but he decides that Faye would actually be a useful like facilitator in his world that he's creating. I think, right? Because she's like an anomaly. She's not a real person. She's made up, but she appears in somebody's memories because they think of her. So he's like, oh, let's bottle this and put it in my own thing. So for me, and we still have more games coming too, but this is the kind of metaphor, the analogy that I made for this, right? When you watch the Star Wars series in actual chronological order, in terms of I'm watching 4 first, the game the movie that came out first, you think that this is a series about Luke Skywalker, right? But it turns out it is actually more of a series about Darth Vader, more of a series about Anakin Skywalker. That's kind of, to me, kind of what this did for To the Moon was, I always thought that Neil was like the quirky side character that, he's got his things, but I'm focused on Ava. Turns out it's all about Neil. You really find that out even more in Imposter Factory, because it's like we're looking at Neil's parents here, and Ava's not really important at all.
Right.
But in the first 2 games, you're like, Ava is kind of, it seems like the sound mind, almost the heroine of this story. But then it's like, no, actually, it's all about Neil. Really. Up to this point, everything revolves around Neil. So kind of interesting in that way. I don't know your guys' thoughts, but
I'm very curious to see how that how and if that gets like reaffirmed in the next game that's coming out. So for folks that don't know, there's going to be, I think there's only one more. Do you guys know, is there more than one planned? I thought there was just the one more.
Yeah.
So far, that's all we know.
Okay, so there's one more game coming out that is called The Last Hour of an Epic To the Moon RPG. It's got a fun conceit. The idea is you're playing the last hour of a JRPG. I'm sure this is that game setup is probably some simulation that, guessing characters, probably Neil, set up to like make some situation more interesting, and maybe it runs amok or something like that. So that's what you're going to be doing, is playing an RPG in the other half of that. And I wonder if that will be equally focused on Neil, because when I was doing a little bit of research for this episode, I found a tweet from Con Gao that said that this game and the last hour of an Epic to the Moon RPG are like the good and bad ending of the series in some way. Screenshot you posted is so good.
Interesting.
He basically
So
said like they serve as a good and the bad ending, and he very cheeky, very appropriate for him, said, "But I'm not telling you which one is which." So we don't know, is this the good ending or the bad ending? And so I'm wondering, in the same way, is this like Neil's ending through Ava, and maybe like the other one's going to be Ava's ending through Neil? Who knows? It'll be interesting to see how that last one shakes out.
I have so many like random thoughts about this game. Things that are like actually coming back to me as we're talking. Like there's a point when all four of them, before you get to the true ending of this game, find out Neil has passed from his condition. Neil says something about like, if this was a simulation, or if I had created this, when they're all sitting on the beach, because that's what they do, right? They create these simulations working for Sigmund or whatever. Neil's like, I totally would have put dinosaurs in this or something. You know, I would have made it fun. Like, and he's like, right, Ava? And Ava's like, yeah. And at that point, you don't really understand. Ava's kind of been weird the entire time. It's almost like she was silent protagonist for this game a little bit. She did not give a whole lot of input. You find out later is because she dulled her memories. So, like, and she mentions it, like, I feel like almost drunk. She did that on purpose to try to forget that she was in a simulation, because she wanted to just experience the time that she had. It didn't really work, right? She was still like in it. She knew what she was doing, but even it helps for the player character, of course, because you don't know what's going on. But like, yeah, that's now I'm missing where I was trying to go with that, of course. But yeah, I mean, like Neil he created this world for Ava and specifically for Ava, and then put everybody else into it to like make her reminisce, I guess, sort of like obviously it's fan service to see like Johnny and River and Colin and Faye and what's his name, Asher, I think is Colin's son. So all these people, Quincy and Linry, like all these people that don't make any sense that they're there, puts them all in there. So it's like, oh, it's a happy time that we've spent together, Ava. Remember all these people, and then also I'm here. I guess the big spin up at the end is Neil created a simulation of himself, who then created another simulation of himself.
Yeah.
Right? So Neil's conscience is like sort of there. Neil's like knows exactly what has taken place for his entire life and puts all of that into this. So there's like a pseudo Neil controlling this that's completely AI, basically, right? Mm-hmm. And that pseudo Neil then creates the Neil character that Ava plays with in game until Ava then goes and basically breaks it, right? She manually overrides all the stuff, shatters through, and then goes and gets to talk to not actually real Neil, but like conscience of Neil, and then forces Neil to actually come out and hang out with them, and then they talk. And of course, like she asks, like she wants Neil to be emotional about things, but he's like, yeah, I'm not really sorry, but I'm not really capable of that emotion that you want me to give you, because I don't like exist as Neil. So
yeah.
And of course, like he warns her several times, like, I made this for you as a little bit of a closure thing. Do not continue to play it. Like, you're going to go down a rabbit hole. You're going to drive yourself insane. Like, I think that's kind of what he's worried about, and that's probably why nobody's allowed to do this, is because you just keep living in an imaginary world. And
yeah, right.
It's almost like a little bit of an extension of what people go through when they're grieving, right? You decide, well, I'm in so much grief, I need to use this thing or that thing, or I need to escape from this reality, when that you can't ever really do that. Like, that's you have to move on. And that's kind of what Neil is saying. Like, I made this for you because I thought it would help, but you got to stop coming back here, type of thing. So
basically.
His reasoning for making this like second version of himself is tied to that in a way that I didn't like fully follow. I sort of just like took it on faith. He says that he's like command center controlling second copy of Neil because he didn't want Ava to get like too dependent on like he almost wanted like this like Neil twice removed to be like a slightly worse version of himself so that Ava would be like more discontent with that Neil and like maybe not want to spend as much time in the simulation. Which is like I was like, it's a little bit of an extra, maybe a little overly dramatic way of encouraging that, but okay, I guess I can take that stakes. And to his credit, I mean, Ava in the ending is very clearly like struggling with the idea of doing that. She like part of her conditions of having this final day with Neil were like actually spend time with like you like clone number one, not clone number one's clone number one. And then I can finally move on. And at the end of the day, she is very much like he's telling her the same thing that we were just saying, you know, that he's been reiterating. He's like, you gotta not spend all your time in here. And she's like, she agrees, but you can tell that she's like her heart's not in her agreement because you know she's still mourning Neil. I don't know if we know how fresh his death is as of the time of the story.
I don't know that we know that. No,
they never say.
I think it's probably pretty soon after. I mean, and it was kind of interesting too. One of my theories initially was like, oh, Neil is jumping into Ava. That's what I thought was happening at the beginning. I thought Neil had gone, like Ava had an issue and Neil was in her head. And then it ends up being the complete opposite of that, right? But yeah, I mean, I think it was pretty soon after because Ava, I mean, they kind of show like that grief that she's experiencing, and you don't really understand what's going on, but there are several like very picturesque, painted almost looking, not RPG Maker scenes where Ava is like seemingly in her apartment or in her house, and like she's like just got her head in her hands. She's laying on like with her head down on a table. She's laying in bed. Like all the telltale signs of she's going through something, right?
Her phone's going off and she's ignoring it. She's not even picking it up. Yeah.
Yep. So.
It'll be interesting to see. Okay, based on that then, based on what Kangao said, do you anticipate that this is the good ending or the bad ending of the series?
God, if it's worse than this, I'd be like, what the heck is that? Like... Does Neil get murdered or someone get murdered? Like, I wish, the only thing I wish for this, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. The only thing I wish for this is that, yes, is it closure for us? Sure. But I still wish, like, I want to see the events leading up to Neil's death. And I suppose it's maybe more poetic this way. We don't get to see that.
Yeah.
But it's something that I would like to see, right? I want to know what happened. Because we're just trying to piece it together to understand, and we just don't. I don't think we're ever going to get that luxury of actually understand what those final days or weeks or months were like for Neil or what he went through, and it's a bummer in that way. And maybe the next one will tell us more, although I doubt it. Seems pretty goofy. So, but yeah, I mean, that's kind of I think.
I mean. The way these series is they will tell the most poignant story of all time, but there's also a JRPG like a anime battle in the middle of it. So I mean, even if it is goofy, they'll tell a story that's probably worthwhile. But it's kind of like, to me, it's kind of messy right now. There's like a lot of like kind of things. It did answer a lot of questions, then it raises a bunch more. So hopefully they can kind of get like a nice cap on the whole franchise with this next one.
Totally. And he said that it's those two games. He says like in a way they can be considered the good and the bad ending. I'm sure that Last Hour of an Epic RPG, I'm sure that will still be in the timeline. I don't think it's going to be like a split and you choose after Imposter Factory, do you believe that Beach Episode or RPG is the timeline? I'm sure they will all be one continuous timeline that just somehow, in a very Freebird way, provide like different endings or perspectives on the ending in a way that is also consistent in terms of like time and memory tech and all that stuff.
Yeah. Maybe there's like a whole like she's in Sigmund and she's like older and it's been some years. Maybe this is like the setup and she finds like an old dusty like CD-ROM or something that says like the RPG, for Eva or something, or you know what I mean, like something like that, and that's how it starts. And it's kind of like an old like game that he made for her, and it's like a celebration of their relationship. Something like that.
That would be awesome. Yeah. Speaking, that's a perfect segue to this, Josh, because I wanted to ask you guys, just a couple of bros talking about To the Moon series. Were Neil and Ava in love? Are we supposed to infer that? Because I think that we always knew that Neil had significant feelings for Ava, and that he maybe didn't know that Ava had significant feelings for him, because he kind of explains that a little bit at the end too. But clearly, he must have thought that Ava did, or else why would he have made all this for her? Like, imagine making all this, and it's just like a wet blanket. Like Ava's like, yeah, I don't. That's cool, but and you were my friend.
You were my buddy, but yeah. Thanks, bud.
In the earlier games, they definitely have that kind of like almost tropey anime-ish sort of like. One of us likes the other, we like each other, but we're also like argumentative and combative, and like we're pushing each other away because we want to pull each other together type of thing. And this game seems to just ask us to say like, hey, at some point they got over that. I don't know if they were ever like in a relationship, but they both at least like made their peace and understood how they felt. And so even though Beach Episode does have some like there's a little bit of like characters trying to push Neil and Ava together, like, oh, you should go talk to them, you know who I'm talking about. It's almost it's played as if even Ava's like, yeah, I know, I should, like there's not much resistance anymore, and there's just like kind of like an acceptance of it. She's like, yeah, we all know what's going on here.
Yeah, maybe like Neil thought of it more romantic than she did, and then she maybe thought, oh, I love him, but like as a partner, like I'm really close to this person, maybe I don't love them like romantically. And then maybe he's leaving her these things like, hey, I did romantically love you, and these are things for you as like gifts, since I can't give you anything else. That could be a case.
I also think that there's a possibility, right, where Ava, and this happens to us all, it could be a huge part of her grief, right, that she feels like she left something on the table, did not have the opportunity because of all this, and now that's why she can't stop being there and like clawing at every little corner of that thing to try to get her answers, because she's like, I should have done more while he was here, and like typical regret when it comes to that grief, right? So
yeah, totally. It's gonna be interesting to see where it goes. Yeah. I'll be curious to see the ending of it. I'm also kind of excited for if their next game is the last one in this timeline. I'll be sad to see it go, but I'll be curious what Freebird does next, right? Sort of removing themselves from this universe that they've been in for 15 years and going off and doing something else.
Yeah, what if they're like, screw it, we're just going to do a different engine. Like they're like, we love RPG Maker, but let's do like a real, our own engine, or maybe use Unity or something, and make something wholly new with their writing style. I'd love that.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm kind of divided on that, because I think I would love to see. I'm going to play a Freebird game if it comes out. Obviously, I just will play it no matter what they do. But I think their style is so significant because they invoke so much emotion from such a simplistic style. Mm-hmm. If they go super shiny, I feel like it's gonna in like there's like any little thing, any facial animation that isn't right, or anything, right? I'm just going to be like, oh, that kind of takes me out of it. Whereas that never happens, because it's almost like when I'm playing a To the Moon game, it's almost like I'm reading a book. There's not enough there to show me how the characters are truly, truly thinking and feeling, versus playing or watching a movie or something like that, right? Where the acting has to be spectacular in order to make something happen. So, I of course I'm going to play anything, but they have cornered the market on making me feel things with a 16-bit style. Like it's
I mean,
Oh,
they could
yeah,
still
no, for
do
sure.
that and then just have a bigger toolbox to do that with. That's basically what I was thinking. Yes, but I definitely agree with you that they do with a lot with a little, and we're sitting here talking about like theories and like basically multiverses of this, like, you know, going inside of memories, and they're just little pixelated dudes on screen, you know, which is always awesome.
They
So,
did a hell of a job, man. They did a hell of a job putting this thing together. So I'm here for it.
Trying to tell me you don't want to play the version of To the Moon, Bethesda style, where the characters talk to each other and the camera centers on them and they stare you directly in your eyes as you give them your dialogue?
If I'm playing as Ava, every time I turn around and look at Neil's goofy face, I'm going to laugh. There's no doubt about it. They always make Neil look funny as hell. Like, it'll be so, like, it doesn't really matter. Neil is such a well-designed character in everything that he is. It's a lot. The glasses, of course. Like, do you ever see Neil's eyes? I don't think so.
Yeah.
It's always just his glasses.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's great. So yeah.
Very cool.
Well, so any other things we want to talk about with the game? What did you guys think about the mini games? I mean, obviously they're both really fun. I think there was just those two, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could.
The surfing
And
one,
the arcade. The arcade, I played that arcade a while, just so you guys know. If you beat that dude's high score at the beginning, you obviously beat him, but then later on, and Steve, you probably saw this too, he's laying on that beach, and he says, "Oh, it took me forever to beat the high score, but I finally did it," or something, and he's like exhausted. And then you go back, so I had like 144K. I went back, and his score was like 159K then. I'm like, I'm not going to be able to touch that. Like, I tried a couple times, and I just couldn't touch it. The screen gets so small. You have to get kind of lucky with the placement of those pink machines. So, yeah, I was like, yeah, I'm done. So
You beat me. I topped it. 130K was the best I ultimately ended up doing. So
yeah, there's some RNG, some luck there. You got the pink machines have to spawn in good places in order to make it work. But yeah, I mean, the only other game sort of that you play, I think, is when you go to the basement for like Roxy's thing, and you're like running away from the lobster that is Roxy, right? So that's kind of a game, but it's not really. So
yeah.
That's a fun diversion. I feel like in general this game has slightly fewer of those. Maybe because this was designed to be a smaller game and a little lower effort. You think to like Imposter Factory with like the last boss of an RPG style boss fight and stuff. Like they really went all out for like a short 1 or 2 minute joke sometimes. This one is a little more subdued in that regard. It's just you're playing in the typical To the Mooniverse style with a couple little side games.
For sure.
They're all fine. They're fun. I did all of them
a
couple of times.
Same. Yeah, I didn't do any score chasing. I was like, oh, this is cool. Basically.
I guess I'll also mention that I'm sure this was a Kickstarter thing. I didn't check, but there's also like a beach that you can comb for messages. Did you do that? Did either of you guys do that?
No.
So off to the side of the beach, there's like another side beach, and when you walk in there, you're given a metal detector. And as you walk around the beach with the metal detector, it'll beep, and if you find the right tile and press a button, it'll show you like a little message in a bottle style message. And they all seem to be messages written by other people, and they have like handles or names and stuff. So and they run a huge range. Like there's a lot of appreciation, I love this series, thank you so much for all you've done. There's a lot of just positive messages, people saying keep going, you're doing your best type stuff. There's people making jokes. I found one that was someone asking his partner to marry him, which was very sweet. That's a fun way to do it if they both love that series. Awesome. I found some that are Bible verses, so it seems like they let anything in. So I walked around there and dug for messages for 5-10 minutes, and it was probably a nice little perk for people to be able to get in there.
That's cool.
That is cool. 2 other things. Since you said all the messages, I believe that some of the NPCs are just people who work for You definitely can talk to Kan Gao.
And I assume that is his actual wife and kid, right?
I would assume so.
Yeah.
But there are other people I'm like, I don't know who you are. And then when the credits scroll, I recognize some of the names.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, there were people who worked.
That's cool.
The only other thing that I have to touch on is, what did you think? And maybe I just completely am misremembering this person. But what's up with I think her name's like Lunaire or something like that. The blonde girl that she's totally new, right? She's,
as far as I know, she's treated like we should be like, oh dang, is that Lunaire?
Yeah.
And I didn't recognize her, but I have a pretty bad memory, so I was
same.
Maybe she's from an old game, but I didn't think she was, and she doesn't really get any explanation as far as I know.
No, I feel like that's some sort of setup for future.
Probably,
something.
Yeah.
She seemed to know Faye quite well.
Yeah.
They talked to each other quite a lot. So yeah, I mean that was strange. So I assume we'll find out more about her at some point. It was funny, Steve. You said I have a pretty bad memory when it comes to this. I can remember To the Moon quite well. Finding Paradise also quite well. I, for some reason, can hardly remember anything about Imposter Factory anymore, and we played it the most recently too. So, like, I remember them like doing the thing where Quincy is like doing the 7 wonders of the world for her and all that, but so much of that game is just gone now. So I was like, man, I hope I'm not missing things as I'm playing this game. I feel like I should have watched a brief synopsis.
I know, right? Maybe I'll remember to do that for last hour, because even for like half a second when I met Colin and Asher, I didn't like instantly recognize them. I was only like, they say something that makes it something about like being a pilot or something like that, where it's like they draw your attention to it. I'm like, oh yeah, of course, duh. I was forgetting about this.
I was waiting for Faye to be hiding in some bushes. But I don't think like she was ever spying on Colin, or not like outwardly, which was like, oh man, come on, do that a little bit. I think she does say something like, she like walks up one time and is like looking at them, and she's like, and then like, it's like, oh, I can't do that or something, like fades back into the background a little bit, like knows her place now type of thing. But still very cool little tidbits that you get with all your favorite characters from the other games, so very fun.
All right, I think we're kind of winding down. I really enjoyed my time with this. Like, I enjoyed it about as much as I thought I would. I was like, yeah, it's a side thing. They're being very open about that. I enjoyed what it was, and then the story had enough for us to chew on a little bit and think about what can they do in the future. So, really appreciate it.
I'm glad that I got to play it. It was a great time. Thanks for making it, Freebird. It was awesome. And let me ask you guys this: what's your To the Mooniverse rankings? Because mine goes now at this point, Finding Paradise at the top, To the Moon very close to below that. On a different day, maybe I would swap them. Then Imposter Factory, then Beach Episode at the bottom. But Beach Episode is like designed to be at the bottom, so that's not really a knock on Beach Episode so much as it is just like what it is.
I assume Bird Story is below Beach Episode for you. I've not played Bird Story.
Yeah, it's just so slight. So I mean, I appreciate what it is and the like little loose connection it has to the other story, but yeah, I'd say Bird Story is at the bottom.
Okay.
I think my rankings are pretty much the same as yours. This Finding Paradise, I think, is the best overall, and then To the Moon was like so close because it was our first entry. It maybe has things they could have like tightened up a little bit, but it's still a great game, fantastic, obviously. So, and then Imposter Factory, then this one.
I think that on our Imposter Factory episode, I ranked Imposter Factory above Finding Paradise, but now that I'm talking about it and I've just mentioned I can't hardly remember anything about Imposter Factory, I would probably say it's To the Moon, Finding Paradise, Imposter Factory, Beach. Basically the exact order that they came out in.
I was going to say, poor Seth, every time a game comes out, he likes it a little less than the last one.
Yeah.
He's fading.
They're all really good, but there's something to me about To the Moon that was like lightning in the bottle. And then so much of what these games do after To the Moon, they're doing very different things, and they certainly caught me off guard, but you're waiting for it now, whereas you can't ever have that To the Moon experience again where you go in completely blind. and have no idea. You're looking for the things, that are going to be surprising you. So unfortunately, that's just like human nature, right? Now I'm doing that to myself, and now they're less impactful. And now I'm ruining everything for myself. But that's just, that's something that we do, right? But To the Moon is just a very special game that everything came together perfectly. So I love that game.
Yeah, I think that knowing that and going into these games kind of looking for what's the big twist, what's the weird thing they're going to do here that you don't expect, they still manage to surprise me every time. Like they still did on this one. It's like, oh, at the end, deal's gone, and this is the whole thing. The whole reveal of this was a big surprise. Like I didn't expect that to be the thing that it is. So I'll give them kudos for that, because I still come out at the end of each of these like, dang, they pulled the wool over my eyes a little bit there. They actually had a nice reveal, and I actually had some emotion. I did feel a little bit every single time. So even in this one, I didn't like cry or I wasn't sobbing playing the game, but I did feel a little sad. I was like, oh, that's that kind of sucks.
I definitely teared up a bit at the. I didn't. It wasn't like To the Moon where I'm like, whoa, it's like it all comes together at once, and you just like can't control your emotion. But I didn't know it was coming, of course, and once it hits, you're like, it's almost like, wait, what? and that's kind of the feeling there is so. But
I got this. They have a really strong ending to this. Like the very last moment of the game is done very well. I don't need to spoil it for people, so I won't. I'll just, if you're gonna play it, you'll appreciate it. It's like a nice reflective moment to go out on. I actually got a little bit sad. I was kind of like thinking back on the series as I was playing this one, as they want you to do, because all these characters are in here. And I am a little bit down that we're not ever going to get that, presumably, that To the Moon loop again. That like setup and payoff of meeting this brand new character or set of characters and exploring their memories and having like their story kind of be the core, and then a little bit of these SigCorp people like surrounding that being a little bit extra. Now we've like fully moved into like, these are the main characters, we're following their plot lines, and I mourn a little bit the loss of that old style, because that is what I really appreciated about those old games.
I agree with you. I think also that we had maybe it was an Imposter Factory that we said maybe it didn't land. It certainly landed hard, but it didn't land quite as hard as the first games because we were waiting for it. So I think we even talked amongst each other during that episode. They were like, how much longer are they going to be able to do this and like wow their audience? Because it's like, it eventually becomes almost like To the Moon tropey. Like, it's coming. So I think that Gal probably has realized that and is like, we need to pivot, need to do something else, and need to broaden our horizons a little bit so we don't continue to ground that same old style. Although I will say, like, there's nothing quite like it. That's what's great about it. They don't need to keep doing it because they've already kind of perfected it. And now I would agree that if they wanted to go in a different direction, it makes total sense. I mean, they've inspired so many games. I've recommended it before, but Bear's Restaurant was very obviously inspired by this game, or by this series, right? And there's so many games out there that do very similar thing, where it's basically like a text adventure, but has a huge emotional impact. So, appreciate Freebird for doing that and for making me an enjoyer of this type of game, this genre. So, very cool.
Darn right. We love you, Freebird. Keep it up.
Okay. I guess that we'll close out with that. Thanks for listening to the spoilers, and catch you guys on the Bargain Quest next episode.
Yeah. See ya.
Peace.
Peace.